The day was ordinary for a young poor girl who worked at a small cafe near the city center. She lived a simple life, waking up early every morning to prepare breakfast for her grandmother before walking miles to work. Her clothes were old but clean, and her heart carried dreams much bigger than her world. Life hadn't been easy. Her parents had passed away when she was very young, leaving her with nothing but a few memories and a strange birthmark on her wrist that looked like a small crescent moon. Her grandmother always told her that this mark was special, a sign that fate had something bigger planned for her. But for the girl, it was just a part of her she never thought much about. One afternoon, while working at the cafe, she noticed a group of luxury cars stop outside. Everyone in the cafe turned their heads as a tall, well-dressed man stepped out. His presence drew attention instantly. He had the calm confidence of someone used to being in control. Rumors spread quickly among the workers that he was a billionaire, the owner of a massive company that helped thousands of people across the country. The girl had never seen anyone like him before. He didn't just look rich, he looked like someone who carried stories behind his quiet eyes. As fate would have it, the man entered the cafe. The air grew silent as he politely greeted the staff. When it was the girl's turn to take his order, her hands trembled slightly. She had served hundreds of customers, but for some reason this man made her nervous. She placed a cup of coffee on the table and turned to leave when the man suddenly noticed something. Her wrist. His eyes widened for a brief second and he softly asked, "Where did you get that birthmark?" The girl looked down confused. "I've had it since I was born," she replied quietly. The man seemed lost in thought, his face showing a mix of shock and emotion. He hesitated before rolling up his own sleeve, revealing the exact same crescent-shaped mark. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The girl froze, unsure how to react. Their marks were identical, placed in the same spot, shaped the same way. She smiled nervously, thinking it might just be a coincidence. "That's strange," she said, trying to lighten the mood. But the man's expression grew more serious. His voice was soft but heavy with feeling. "It's not strange," he said quietly. "I once lost someone who had that same mark." His words hit her like a wave. 1,000 questions raced through her mind, but she didn't know what to ask first. "What do you mean?" she asked gently. The man didn't answer right away. He looked down, almost as if fighting back memories he had tried to forget for years. Finally, he said, "A long time ago I had a family, but I lost them in an accident. My wife and my little daughter. She was only a few months old, and the only thing I remember clearly was that small birthmark on her wrist." The cafe went silent around them. The girl's heart began to race, her eyes filling with tears. Could it be true? Could this powerful man standing before her really be her father? The one she had been told died long ago. The thought seemed impossible. Yet something deep inside her whispered that destiny had finally brought her to the truth. She gathered her courage and asked softly, "Are you saying you think I could be your daughter?" The man looked at her, his eyes trembling with emotion. "I don't know," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "But that birthmark, it's exactly the same. And when I look at you, I see something I've been missing for years. Hope." The girl didn't know whether to cry or smile. All her life she had wondered why she felt incomplete, why she often dreamed of a man's voice calling her name in the distance. Now, standing face to face with the billionaire who might be her father, she felt her world shift in ways she couldn't explain. Neither of them knew what to do next. The cafe seemed to fade away as they stood there, lost in disbelief. For the first time, she felt that maybe her grandmother's words were true. Maybe that little birthmark was more than just a mark. Maybe it was destiny's way of leading her back to the family she never knew she had. But deep inside, the billionaire wasn't just surprised. He was afraid. If this girl really was his daughter, it meant uncovering painful memories, lost years, and a truth he had buried under his empire's success. Yet something about her presence made him feel alive again, like life had given him a second chance. As the girl walked home that evening, she couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The sun dipped below the skyline, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Her heart was full of confusion and hope. Maybe tomorrow she would know the truth. But tonight, for the first time in her life, she dared to dream that she wasn't alone. The next morning, the poor girl barely slept. Her mind kept replaying the moment when the billionaire revealed his birthmark, the same as hers. She woke up before sunrise, sat beside her grandmother, and quietly told her everything that had happened at the cafe. The old woman listened carefully, her wrinkled hands trembling slightly as she held her cup of tea. When the girl finished speaking, her grandmother sighed deeply and looked away for a moment. "As if hiding something in her eyes, my child," she said softly. "There's something I should have told you long ago." The girl's heart tightened. The grandmother continued, "The night your parents died wasn't as simple as I made it sound. There was a terrible fire in the hospital. Your mother didn't survive. But when I reached there, I found you outside the building, wrapped in a small blanket with that mark on your wrist. I never found your father. Everyone said he had died too. But I always wondered." The girl leaned forward, her voice trembling. "You think he could still be alive?" The grandmother nodded slowly. "Sometimes I prayed that he was. Maybe fate wanted you two to meet again." Tears filled the girl's eyes. Everything suddenly made sense. The mark, the dreams, the feeling that something had been missing her entire life. Without wasting another moment, she decided she needed to see the billionaire again, to ask the questions she couldn't bring herself to ask before. Later that day, she returned to the cafe hoping he might come back. Hours passed, and just when she began to lose hope, a black car stopped outside. Her heart skipped a beat as the billionaire stepped out. He walked straight to her, his expression serious but kind. "I couldn't stop thinking about what happened yesterday," he said. "I need to know the truth." They sat down at a quiet corner table. The billionaire spoke first. "I didn't tell you everything. Years ago, my wife and I had a daughter. She had a rare birthmark, the same one you have. There was a car crash when she was just a baby. Everyone told me she didn't survive, but her body was never found. I spent years searching, but after some time, I lost hope." The girl could see the pain in his eyes. It wasn't the kind of pain that could be faked. He looked like a man who had carried guilt for far too long. She told him about her grandmother, the fire, and how she had been found wrapped in a blanket as a baby. As she spoke, the billionaire's eyes glistened with tears. "I need to meet your grandmother," he said quietly. "If she's the one who found you, maybe she knows something that can prove it." The girl agreed and invited him to her small home on the edge of town. The road was narrow, the houses close together, nothing like the grand places he was used to. But as he stepped into the humble home, something inside him softened. He saw the girl's grandmother sitting on an old wooden chair, her eyes kind but sharp with recognition. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the grandmother whispered, "I know who you are." The billionaire froze. "You came to the hospital that night, didn't you?" She said, "You were looking for your wife and child. I saw you, but the doctor said you were badly injured. Later, when I found the baby outside the building, I thought God had sent her to me because she had no one left." The billionaire covered his face with his hands, trying to contain the storm of emotions rushing through him. "So it's true," he whispered. "She's really my daughter." The girl stood still, her heart pounding. Everything she had ever wondered about her life suddenly became clear. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at the man who might truly be her father. The grandmother gently placed her hand on the girl's shoulder. "Fate wanted this moment to happen," she said softly. "You both lost so much, but maybe now you can heal together." The billionaire reached out, his hand shaking slightly, and said, "If you'll let me, I want to be part of your life. I know I can't change the past, but I can make sure your future is different." The girl didn't hesitate. She stepped forward and hugged him tightly. For the first time in many years, the billionaire felt something money could never buy: peace. The warmth of her embrace reminded him of the family he had once lost, and the hope that maybe life was giving him a second chance. That night, after he left, the girl sat by the window and watched the stars. Her heart was full of gratitude and confusion. Everything had changed so suddenly, and she didn't know what the future held. But she knew one thing for sure: the world felt a little brighter. Somewhere out there, someone cared for her deeply, not because of who she was, but because she was his daughter. As she closed her eyes, she whispered a quiet prayer of thanks, unaware that the next few days would bring even more surprises, the kind that would test their bond and reveal how strong love and truth could really be. The next few days felt like a dream for the poor girl. The billionaire kept his promise and visited her often. He brought gifts, food, and even arranged a doctor for her grandmother. But more than the material things, what truly touched her was his kindness. The way he listened, the way he spoke gently, and the way his eyes softened every time he looked at her. For the first time in her life, she felt seen, valued, and loved. One morning, the billionaire invited her to visit his mansion. "There's something I want to show you," he said. The girl hesitated at first. She had never stepped inside a place like that before. Her entire life had been spent in small rooms and crowded streets, not marble floors and chandeliers. But her grandmother encouraged her to go, reminding her that fate wouldn't bring her this far just to stop now. As the car drove through the gates, the girl's eyes widened. The mansion looked like something out of a dream. Tall glass windows, beautiful gardens, and a fountain that sparkled under the morning sun. She could hardly believe she was standing there. The billionaire smiled softly. "Welcome home," he said, almost whispering. But not everyone inside that home shared his warmth. As soon as she entered, a tall woman in a formal suit approached them. She looked at the girl from head to toe with a cold, suspicious gaze. "Sir," she said quietly, "who is she?" The billionaire replied proudly, "She's someone very important. I believe she's my daughter." The woman's expression stiffened. She was his business advisor, someone who had worked beside him for years. "Your daughter?" she repeated, trying to hide her disbelief. "But how can you be sure? Anyone could claim that, sir." The girl immediately felt small and out of place. Her simple clothes and shy posture made her feel like she didn't belong in this shining world. But the billionaire gently placed his hand on her shoulder. "I don't need proof right now," he said firmly. "Sometimes the heart knows what the mind cannot explain." The woman frowned but didn't argue. She gave the girl a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes and walked away. The billionaire then guided the girl through the house, showing her rooms filled with memories, paintings, photos, and trophies that told the story of his life. He stopped at one photo on the wall, a woman holding a baby with a crescent-shaped birthmark visible on her wrist. "That was your mother," he said quietly. "You were just a few months old here." The girl touched the frame gently, her eyes filling with tears. She didn't remember the woman in the picture, but somehow she felt her presence. It was as if a missing piece of her heart had finally been found. After lunch, the billionaire introduced her to a few of his close staff. Some greeted her kindly, others kept their distance, whispering when they thought she couldn't hear. Words like "she's pretending" and "he's just lonely" floated through the air, cutting her like invisible knives. That night, when she returned home, she couldn't sleep. The mansion was beautiful, but it wasn't free of doubt. She wondered if she truly belonged there. What if it was all a mistake? What if the billionaire's emotions had clouded his judgment? The next morning, she found a letter waiting for her at the cafe where she worked. It was from the billionaire. He had arranged for a DNA test, not because he doubted her, but because he wanted to silence those who did. His note said, "No matter what the results say, you've already become family to me." Tears filled her eyes as she read his words. It wasn't about blood anymore. It was about connection. Still, she knew the results would change everything, for better or worse. Days passed, and whispers about the billionaire and the mystery girl began spreading through the media. Reporters tried to find her, and photos from the cafe started appearing online. Some people supported her story, while others called her a liar. The attention scared her, but the billionaire remained calm. He protected her, assuring her that the truth would soon clear all doubts. Finally, the day came when the DNA results were ready. The billionaire called her to the mansion. His expression was unreadable, his hands shaking slightly as he held the sealed envelope. The room was silent as he tore it open. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he looked up, his eyes filled with emotion. The girl held her breath. "What does it say?" she whispered. The billionaire took a deep breath, but before he could answer, someone suddenly entered the room. The same advisor from before. She looked nervous, holding her phone. "Sir," she said, "you need to see this. There's someone claiming to be your real daughter." The air froze. The billionaire and the girl stared at each other, stunned. Everything around them blurred into silence. The envelope with the test results was still in his hand, unopened. The girl's heart began to pound. Could this be another lie? Or was fate testing them once again before revealing the real truth? The billionaire looked at her with steady eyes and said softly, "No matter what happens, don't lose faith. We'll face this together." And at that moment, the story took another turn, one that would reveal not just the truth about her past, but also the strength of love that no test or claim could ever destroy. The atmosphere in the billionaire's mansion was filled with confusion and tension. The girl stood silently, her eyes fixed on the sealed DNA envelope in the billionaire's trembling hands. The advisor's words echoed in her ears. "Someone else is claiming to be your real daughter." It felt like the ground beneath her had disappeared. A few moments later, the sound of footsteps filled the hallway. A young woman entered, dressed elegantly, confident in her movements. Her eyes immediately fell on the billionaire, then on the poor girl standing beside him. She gave a faint smile, the kind that looked polite but carried hidden meaning. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said softly, "but I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm his daughter." The billionaire's face turned pale. "Who are you?" he asked in disbelief. The woman stepped forward. "My name doesn't matter right now," she said, "but I was raised by a woman who told me the truth about who I am, that my real father is you." The girl's heart sank. She felt small again, invisible. The billionaire looked lost, unsure who to believe. His advisor quickly stepped in, saying, "Sir, we should verify this. We can't rely on emotions. We need facts." He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You're right," he said. "Let's open the test results first." The room went silent as he unfolded the paper inside the envelope. The girl's breath caught in her throat. His eyes scanned the document slowly, then froze. Tears welled in his eyes. He looked up at the girl, the one he had believed to be his lost child, and whispered, It says we are not related." The world stopped for her. She didn't cry, she couldn't even speak. Her body felt heavy, her chest tight. The room blurred as the truth shattered every dream she had allowed herself to believe. The billionaire looked heartbroken too. "That can't be right," he murmured. "There must be some mistake." The other woman took a step closer. "There's no mistake," she said calmly. "I've known for a long time. My mother told me everything before she passed away. I never wanted your money, I just wanted to meet you." The billionaire was speechless. His emotions clashed between confusion, hope, and guilt. He turned to the poor girl, his voice trembling. "I don't know what to say. You've brought light back into my life. Even if this result says otherwise, in my heart you are still my daughter." The girl couldn't hold back her tears anymore. "But I'm not," she whispered. "I don't belong here." And before anyone could stop her, she ran out of the mansion, tears streaming down her face. The rain had started outside. She walked for miles, her clothes soaked, her heart breaking with every step. The dream she had lived for just a few days had vanished like it was never real. All she had left were questions, and who was she really? And why did fate bring her to him, only to take everything away again? Back at the mansion, the billionaire sat quietly in his study. The DNA paper lay on the desk, wet from his tears. The supposed real daughter stood nearby, unsure what to say. "You should rest," she finally said softly. "This must be hard for you." He looked up at her, his eyes distant. "Hard? I've spent years searching for a piece of my heart that I thought I lost. And just when I found it, the truth took it away again." The next day, the news spread quickly. Headlines flashed across media sites. "Billionaire finds long-lost daughter. DNA test confirms identity." Reporters surrounded his home, praising the reunion. But inside, the mansion was filled not with joy, but emptiness. The billionaire couldn't stop thinking about the poor girl. The one who had smiled shyly when she first served him coffee. The one whose voice trembled when she asked if he was her father. The one who had brought meaning back into his lonely world. He knew what the papers said, but deep in his soul he couldn't accept it. Meanwhile, the girl sat by her grandmother's bedside, silent and pale. Her grandmother gently stroked her hand. "My child," she said softly, "sometimes life gives us people who are not bound by blood but by heart. Don't let this pain take away your faith." The girl nodded, but tears still rolled down her cheeks. "I thought I finally found where I belonged," she whispered. That evening, as the sun set, a familiar car stopped outside their small home. The billionaire stepped out carrying an umbrella. The girl was shocked to see him again. "Why are you here?" she asked softly. He looked at her, his eyes filled with kindness and sorrow. "Because I can't let you disappear from my life. I don't care what the papers say. You may not be my daughter by blood, but you are family by heart. You reminded me what love feels like." Her eyes filled with tears again. "But what about your real daughter?" she asked. He sighed. "She's part of my past. But you brought me back to life." You gave me something no DNA test can ever prove, a reason to care again." The girl didn't know what to say. The moment was heavy, but it carried a strange comfort. For the first time since the truth came out, she realized something. Maybe family wasn't just about being born into it. Maybe it was about finding people who truly cared, even when they had no reason to. As the rain poured softly around them, the billionaire looked at her and said, "No matter what the world says, you'll always have a home with me." And though her heart still ached, a small spark of warmth returned, the kind that whispered, maybe this story wasn't ending after all. Maybe it was only changing. The next few days felt painfully quiet. The girl tried to return to her normal life, working at the cafe and taking care of her grandmother. But her heart was no longer the same. Every cup of coffee, every customer, every passing car outside reminded her of the man she had started to believe was her father, the man who had made her feel like she finally belonged somewhere. The billionaire, too, was a different man. The mansion that once felt full of life now seemed cold and empty. Even though the news had declared that he had found his real daughter, his heart told him otherwise. Something about the story didn't fit. He tried to convince himself that it was over, that he should move on. But every time he looked at the birthmark on his wrist, he thought of her. One night he sat alone in his study, staring at the DNA report on his desk. His instincts told him something wasn't right. He picked up the phone and called the private investigator who had helped arrange the test. "I need you to check something," he said. "Look into how this report was processed, every detail." The investigator agreed and promised to call him back soon. Meanwhile, the girl spent her nights worrying about the billionaire. Despite everything, she couldn't hate him. She missed his kindness, the way he spoke with warmth and treated her grandmother with respect. Her grandmother noticed her silence and said gently, "My dear, if something feels unfinished in your heart, don't let fear stop you from finding the truth." 2 days later, the billionaire received a call that made his blood run cold. The investigator's voice was tense. "Sir, you were right to doubt the results. The lab that did the test noted someone tampered with the report." "What?" he whispered. "There's evidence that a second sample was switched before processing. It seems someone didn't want you to know the real truth." The billionaire gripped the edge of his desk. "Can you find out who?" "I already did," the investigator replied. "It was your advisor. She worked with the other woman, the one who claimed to be your daughter. They paid someone inside the lab to fake the results." For a long moment, the billionaire couldn't speak. Betrayal burned deep inside him. The people he had trusted most had lied to him, stolen his peace, and broken an innocent girl's heart. Without hesitation, he stood up and said, "Send me the proof. I'm going to fix this." That same evening, he drove straight to the girl's small home. The rain had started again, soft but steady, just like the night he first realized how much she meant to him. When she opened the door and saw him standing there, she froze in shock. "I thought I'd never see you again," she said quietly. "I couldn't stay away," he replied. "I found out the truth. The DNA report was fake." Her eyes widened. "Fake? What do you mean?" He stepped closer, his voice trembling with emotion. "Someone didn't want us to know the truth. The woman who claimed to be my daughter. She and my advisor changed the test results. But the real report shows that you are my daughter." For a few seconds, she didn't move. The world seemed to stop around her. The rain outside grew heavier, but all she could hear was her heartbeat. "You're sure?" she whispered. He nodded, tears filling his eyes. "Yes, I have the real proof this time. You are my child." The girl broke down, covering her face as tears streamed down her cheeks. The billionaire reached out and hugged her tightly, his own tears falling freely. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "You suffered because of lies and greed. I should have protected you." Her voice shook as she replied, "All I ever wanted was to know where I came from. Not your money, not your fame, and just the truth. And now you have it," he said softly. "The truth, and a father who will never let you go again." When her grandmother came into the room and saw them together, she smiled weakly, tears glistening in her eyes. "I told you, child," she said. "That mark was destiny's promise. No lie can erase what's written by fate." The billionaire thanked her sincerely for raising his daughter with so much love. "You gave her the strength that I couldn't," he said. "You'll always be family to me." The next morning, the truth came out publicly. The billionaire held a press conference not to shame anyone, but to tell the world what really happened. He stood before cameras holding his daughter's hand and said, Sometimes the richest people in the world aren't those who own the most. They're the ones who find what truly matters. I lost my family once, but fate gave me another chance, and I won't waste it. News channels everywhere broadcasted their reunion. People who had once doubted the girl now praised her for her courage and purity. The advisor and the false claimant faced investigation for fraud, and the billionaire quietly forgave them, saying, "Anger doesn't heal broken hearts. Truth does." For the girl, life changed completely. The mansion that once felt cold now felt like home. The staff who once doubted her now greeted her with respect. But she didn't forget where she came from. She continued working part-time at the cafe, not because she needed to, but because it reminded her of how far she'd come. Her relationship with the billionaire grew stronger each day. He often sat with her and shared stories about her mother, how she laughed, how she sang while cooking, how she always said their daughter would grow up to change someone's life. She was right, he told her once, smiling softly. You changed mine. Her grandmother's health, too, began to improve. The billionaire made sure she received the best care possible. On evenings when the three of them sat together in the garden, watching the sun dip behind the trees, there was a peace that words couldn't describe. One night, as they looked at the stars, the girl said quietly, "It's strange how one little mark brought us together." He smiled and nodded. It wasn't just a mark. It was life's way of guiding us back to each other. Some things are meant to be, no matter how many years pass. The wind blew gently through the trees, carrying the faint scent of jasmine. For the first time in her life, she felt whole. Not because of wealth, not because of titles, but because she finally understood that love was never truly lost. It might hide for a while, buried under pain or distance, but it always finds its way home. Months later, the billionaire established a foundation in her name, helping children who had lost their parents find new families and opportunities. When asked why he started it, he simply said, "Because I know what it's like to lose someone, and what it feels like to find them again." On the day of the foundation's opening, the girl stood beside him, smiling proudly. She looked out at the crowd and thought of all the people who would now get a second chance, just like she did. After the event, she turned to her father and said softly, "You gave me more than I ever dreamed of." He smiled warmly. "No, my dear. You gave me a reason to live again." As they walked away together, hand in hand, the sun broke through the clouds, painting the sky in gold. It felt like a promise that even after the darkest storms, light always returns, and so, the poor girl who once wondered if she belonged anywhere, found everything she had ever hoped for: truth, family, and love. Her story wasn't one of wealth or power, but of faith and destiny. A reminder that sometimes life saves its most beautiful miracles for those who never stop believing.